Well, welcome back to our project bike, the Beta RR390, 2023 model. Something that we've raved about right from the start. You know, it's something very special about this bike. You'd have to say what sort of spearheads the thing is just such a peach of an engine. You know, it's got more torque than a 350, you know, way less gyro than a 450, and yet it's got the agility of a much smaller bike. So we always talk about 350 as a mid-capacity bikes that a few of the other manufacturers offer. But something about this 385cc engine and just how smooth and refined it is, you know, that's the standout thing about it. So, you know, we haven't done a lot. Our project bikes, typically we put hours on them rather than parts on them. But we sort of thought, you know, given that this bike, and it's, you know, this bike is 14,500, it's Beta's biggest selling four-stroke model. And it comes as no surprise for those reasons we just talked about. Some people say the suspension could do a little bit of work. I could agree with that on more open, fast stuff, but we've been using this a lot over the past couple of months. We've got 25 hours now on the thing. We've been using it a lot in more technical terrain. So, you know, just really enjoying the fact that you can use that crisp engine, that amazing diaphragm sprung clutch, you know, from Brembo. So, given that it's significantly cheaper, you know, you're talking about a sort of grand, somewhere between $1,000 to $2,500 cheaper than a lot of the other, you know, equivalent, say 350s, 450s coming, you know, out of Europe, you know, and roughly on par with a Yami, which I think the Yamis are around sort of 15 grand. So, you know, I think in the back of your head, bikes like this, like most bikes that come out of Europe these days, and now I guess, you know, Japan, well, Yamaha are out of Japan anyway. They're hard-nosed, lightweight, ready to go out of the box, you know, and, you know, I think a Beta is a perfect example of that. But I think when you know, you end up saving yourself a couple of grand, you know, on the dealer floor, and Beta also has a really good act with their aftermarket parts. I think a lot of guys are thinking, well, what could I put on this thing? And, you know, for me, and for our project bikes, typically it's not about performance enhancements, and particularly, as I said, we're riding this thing in a lot of extreme terrain at the moment. So, you know, I think the whole angle was getting some protection on the bike. So, any protection, as you know, comes at a cost in terms of weight. So it's a simple matter of weighing up the cost of that, but also weighing up the cost of those protective parts and the parts you're going to save yourself from replacing, you know, by protecting them. So we thought it might be a good opportunity to take you through. Most of the parts are on the bike. You know, you can buy them all online through the, you know, Beta genuine accessories. I think we've got some AXP stuff, that French brand, some ASX lever bits and pieces, and I think Pro Power do the shark fin. So let's just have a bit of a look through. You know, we'll give you a bit of a top line of what we've fitted, why we've fitted it. So I guess sort of starting, you cannot miss that big AXP Extreme skid plate. $230, and the standard bash plate, I think we talked about recently in a couple of articles we did talking about the parts on the bike, the good and the bad, the stuff that you got to watch out for, maintenance issues, that kind of stuff. You know, we're talking about you literally had to get an open-ended little 8mm here to get rid of that standard, you know, to remove that standard bash plate. So we've replaced it with this thing. So AXP, thicker plastic, so, you know, it dampens the noise, gives way more protection for cases, cradle, but also, you know, you can see here what it actually does with the linkage. So I did some weights on the thing. I think, you know, the standard bash plate, which is a pretty good unit, to be fair, is 580 grams. This thing's sort of 1.4. So you're adding the best part of a kilo there, but the added protection that you're giving for some vital parts, you know, oil pump, water pump, but particularly the linkage, which, you know, given all the extreme stuff we've been doing, that's a big thing. Interestingly enough, it actually puts a fair bit of weight on the shock there, which in a way sort of alters the static sag on the bike. So just be sort of aware of that. It's a little bit fiddly to fit, and when I first put it on the first couple of times, like, man, this is a disincentive to do an oil change. But, you know, the reality is once you get used to it and you sort of get a bit of a technique, it's pretty easy to get on and off. The other thing also by AXP is the radiator guards, and these things are bloody good. You know, AXP is a brand that a lot of the Euros, if you look at the World Enduro Championship, a lot of the Euros are running these things. So, you know, there's radiator braces, there's radiator guards, and you know, and they differ big time. These ones are a bit of a fiddle to fit. You don't have to take your radiators off or anything, but what I like about them is they give you crush resistance from the side, but also the way they actually brace back behind the radiators. They actually brace up against the frame. So that not only gives them crush protection, but also sort of fold back protection. So you consider, I think it's $363 for each side. So you basically got, what do we got? $200 worth of extreme radiator guards protecting you from potentially $700 and something worth of damage, you know, if you have to replace those radiators. Only downside, and this is something that we weighed up, we quibbled a little bit recently that, you know, the four-stroke Betas in particular, Slightly limited in terms of their steering lock. Fitting these radiator guards actually limits that a little bit more as well. So you just got to be mindful of that. We also fitted the thermo fan. So it's kind of interesting that these radiator guards from HP actually come with provision, I guess, to fit the radiator fan in there. So, and the really cool thing is, to fit this fan itself, if you don't have the radiator guards, you've actually got to pull that, drain your fluid, pull that left-hand radiator off, use some special little brackets, pop rivet the bastard in, and then put it all back together, fill it up with juice again, which is like, you know, it's, anyway, the great thing is about the AXP ones, they've actually got pre-drilled holes. It's just 4 bolts. There is something a bit funny about the bolts being a little bit long. We have to shave them off a little bit so they're not a threat to the back of your radiators. But, you know, I think a thermo fan, again, when you've got the grill in the front of those radiator guards and you're limiting airflow, I think it's just kind of prudent that you know, again, if we were riding open grass track, wouldn't be thinking about it. We're doing a lot of sort of snotty stuff. We're coming into the warmer months now, so it makes a lot of sense. And while we're at it, because I did boil this thing a couple of times, not badly, but lost a little bit of fluid. And I remembered, you know, remember liquid intelligence? Back in 2015, 16, everybody was using it. And, you know, basically takes your glycol-based, you know, radio fluid, which I think has got 115 degree boiling, up to 190. So we fitted some liquid intelligence in the thing. You've just got to be really mindful that, you know, when you do fit it, you've got to flush the system properly, because if you don't flush the water properly and you have a combination of liquid intelligence and water, I mean, you still got the 115, so you're not going backwards, but it's just nice, not only that you're reducing the likelihood of the thing boiling, but you're also getting, you know, your engine is running cooler. So, what else while we're still on the protection program? Billet alloy rear disc guard from ProPower. So these guys make some great carbon bits and pieces. So again, there's, you know, or commonly known as a shark fin. So good looking thing, you know, it's so tough, but you know, I think some disc guards actually just bolt into your existing caliper. This one also comes with it. You have to remove your caliper carrier. So, you know, once again, it's just protection. You know, some people put them on their front disc as well. I don't think I've ever done a front disc, but I've routed a bunch of rear brake discs. So there's the best part of $200 if you want to get a genuine one. So what are we paying for that? We're paying $200 for a rear disc guard from ProPower to save you from spending $200, you know, to get a new one of those. What else? Well, we got a few little nice cherry bling bits. The other protection, you know, if you've ever had a rock fly off your chain and go through your cases, you know the rigmarole and the cost of that. You know, like it's astronomical. So to me, it's a kind of no-brainer. It's a really easy fit. You know, a little bit of, you know, I mean, case saver, I think, is what they're generally called. I think Beta call it a clutch slave cylinder guard, you know. So $150. Two recess bolts, really easy to fit, piece of piss. But what I like about it is that your neutral sensor and your stator pickup wires coming up here too, they actually tuck in a lot neater now in front of that. So cool, good little bit, nice little bit of bling while we're at it. What else? Protective parts. So as I said, it comes with a pretty good bash plate, all Beta bikes do. Doesn't come with handguards. So that's, in my mind, I think enduro bikes should come with handguards, but then you've got the people who are like, I'm a full wrap guy or I'm a brush guard guy, so I can understand why manufacturers just go, hey, let the consumer make the choice. So the guys sent us these, I think they're about $75, $80 worth, and to be fair, they look and feel pretty flimsy, and I was not a fan of them to start with, but these have been through, I hate to say, I've been doing a fair bit of crashing, and the cool thing is that they're enough to keep any little saplings or stuff from, you know, busting your finger. But when you do crash, they spin, and it's kind of ingenious. And you know, so okay, you're saying that's not going to protect your levers, and I think I will step up to some folding levers because I've been putting the thing down a little bit. But amazing that after, I don't know, let's put a number on it, a dozen crashes, you know, these things are spun around, they're still in place and looking good. Also up on the bars too, yeah. And talking about that, if you know, just putting these little, you know, AS3 Teflon line perch clamps on there. Again, nice little bling bit, but they're actually really functional. You can do them up less. Instead of having a big chunky 8mm bolt out there, they're recessed. And yeah, and obviously this is the RR model. So as you're probably aware, the racing model, which is RR racing model from Beta, the up spec with a Kayaba suspension, gets a whole lot of other little sort of bling bits, but you know, then that's a red, white and blue bike. So I'm actually a fan of the sort of subtle, you know, like standard, you know, red and white and black bike. But we have, you know, a bit of a tip of the hat to some of those bits and pieces. So, you know, these upper sort of fork stanchions, those really big ones, you know, it's really easy to get stone chips on these things. So, you know, definitely worth fitting those. Same with these cool little ones down here. You know, Liquid Moly, we're using those products on the bike at the moment. They've got a hookup with Beta in Australia. And also on the swing arm. So again, we're in two minds. Love the black look of the swing arm. I think that, you know, the decals make it look really good, but you know, this does get scuffed up a lot. And when we've been throwing it down the road on some sandstone, it's, you know, there are some clip-on plastic options. I think that's something that we're going to be looking at down the track. So I think that's about it. Now, if you do the math on all that, and a few other little things, we've got an air wash cover, which is $60, which doesn't sound very cheap to me for literally a piece of plastic. But you know, when you think about the damage you can potentially cause to your engine if you know when you're washing the thing, so we thought that was worth doing as well. So I think when we added it all up, I want to say that was about sort of between 13 and 1500, something like that, with all those bits and pieces, including the decals and whatnot, you know, which still you could argue brings it in, you know, as a total cost, you know, cheaper to several of the other bikes coming out of Europe at the moment. So, you know, not a huge amount. As you see, we've got the standard graphics on the thing, 25 hours on the bike, and it's pretty amazing. But, you know, I think we've probably taken a Stanley knife to take a couple of things off here, but you know, the thing's in pretty damn good nick for, you know, having done that. One thing I really like, I'm pretty much every project bike I've ever had, I've fitted a solid rear disc to. This time I haven't. Not because it is a solid disc, but because just and the reason I fitted that solid disc is just to get that modulation. Like, nobody's looking for a stronger rear brake, right? Everybody always look, give me more feel, give me more, or I don't want to lock the thing. So people do everything from soak their brake pads in oil to you name it, but you know, a solid brake disc is probably the first port of call for that, and I've always done it. First bike ever, I haven't had to do that because just really good feel, the combination of emissions and that. So where to from here? So we're going to, like we say, we're going to throw some more hours on the thing. We've got a few objectives. Our one major quibble with the bike is the seat. You know, it's hard, it's firm, it's an absolute rock when you're sitting up here, and sometimes hard to know where you are on the bike. So I know that the 2024 model that they've just announced has got a new seat. I believe it's got some softer foam. You haven't got a lot of depth to play with, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. A few other little things we've got to know. We want to put that AXP, it's got an extreme chain guide on the thing. Like I mentioned before, those clutch and brake leaders, the fold back, some chain adjuster blocks, a little bit of extra bling, and then potentially a sprocket. Like, we're still going on the original sprocket, but I just like the idea of a combination of steel and alloy. 49 tooth on the entire 4-stroke range from Beta. So I'm in two minds whether to go taller or shorter, or maybe 49 is where we're going to end up. So, and from there, some suspension work. We have wound up quite a lot more preload just to bring the chassis more balanced on, you know, faster grass track stuff where it's diving a little bit. But you know, like the Sachs suspension, the ZF, or the top spec now, we've actually found it bloody good in the tight stuff, and in that more extreme stuff that we've been doing, it's super compliant. So, you know, work in progress. It's a great thing. It's been, you know, one of our favourite project bikes. Good looking rooster. You know, it prompts a lot of people to ask a lot of questions about the thing, and but stay tuned. We've got a bunch of stuff on the website, as I said, talking about the good and not so good parts on the thing. I think we've got another article called what to look out for, some maintenance tips and tricks, how to route stuff, just all those little things. It's that, because the ownership experience is not just about buying it, walking out of the dealer, putting parts on it, and you know, talking about it down in the pub. It's actually about living with the thing, right, and maintaining it, and understanding what does and doesn't wear and how to look after the thing properly. So it's been a great experience. We'll check in with you next time when we put some more bits and pieces on it, and I've done a little bit of work with the suspension as well.